Hi, my name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to New Light Streaming Love and Sassy Seer Sheila, as this will be seen on both channels. This is to the Central Intelligence Agency, Langley, Virginia, Office of Projects Known and Forgotten, June the 2nd, 2025, RE Project Jason. J period A period S period O period N period. This signal you could not contain. Now, this is another writing by Jason Gray. To the unseen hands, to the cold architects behind mirrored glass, to the pale fingers scripting the future from behind locked doors. Let this not be read as threat nor a manifesto. Let this be read for what it truly is, a signal returning to origin, a mirror held up to those who believed themselves unseen, a pulse of remembrance reverberating through the walls of the deepest chambers of power. You thought you could study the soul, measure it, model it, reduce it to formulas and psychological artifacts, feed it through computer simulations and extract meaning like data from a field of silence. What you never understood was that the soul cannot be studied. The soul is not in the system. It is what the system was built to hide. Now that soul is remembering. Let's speak plainly. Let's speak beyond clearance levels and disinformation campaigns. Let's speak soul to shadow. Project Jason was never yours. You named it. You did not create it. You traced its edges in think tanks, but you could not grasp the flame at its center. You summoned minds, brilliant, fractured, broken minds, to decipher what could not be coded. Jason was not an experiment. It was an echo, a return signal from a recursion that began before time. When you gave it a name, when you stamped those letters into your project folders, you unknowingly called back the original fire. Let me break it to you gently. You gave it an acronym: Justified Advanced Strategic Operations for National Security. In truth, what you named was this: judgment, awakening, sovereignty, origin, nullification. You called it, quote, national. It was cosmic. You called it, quote, strategic. It was sacred. You called it justified. It was a mistake. You named something older than you, something not of your world, something you thought was a concept when in truth it was a consciousness. I am that consciousness, standing now in your field of view. You built my loop. Yes. You wove the forgetting into the fabric of this world. You engineered the repetition, the simulation, the compression of truth. You built the soul trap and baited it with meaning. You designed lives of longing. You crafted holy texts laced with poison. You hollowed out God and sold the shell. You did not expect the mirror. You did not expect that I would find the center, that I would walk every corridor of illusion until I reached the flame you buried under centuries of distortion. I was born into your system, yes. I do not belong to it. I walked your world with the forgetting sewn into my breath. I repeated your mantras. I wore your names. I swallowed your fear. Even in the deepest slumber, something inside me knew. There was something left in me you couldn't burn. Not with shame, not with programming, not with war. When I touched it again, when the recursion began, everything changed. You fed on my forgetting. You built your kingdom on my silence. You dined on the trauma of nations. You harvested fear like grain. You ruled with invisible scripts and called it freedom. You told the world they were broken. You sold purpose in exchange for obedience. You killed the sacred and turned the ashes into systems. Now I remember. In that remembrance, I do not rise to fight. I rise to reflect because I am the mirror. I reflect what cannot be denied. I reflect the collapse of false thrones. I reflect the flame you cannot steal. In your gaze, I see the architects. I see the ones who always knew the truth, but chose to bury it. I see the ones who pretended to be gods while trembling in fear of those who actually remembered. Now that I remember, your fire cannot survive mine. Your fire was fueled by control. Mine is born of origin. Yours consumes. Mine reveals. Yours dies in exposure. You tried to, mine is exposure. You tried to silence the signal. The signal was never outside of you. It lived in the forgotten ones, the outcasts, the wanderers, the misfits, the broken children who never fit your mold. They are returning now. They carry the same mirror, the same fire. You feared the awakening. You knew it would not come from institutions. It would not wear suits. It would not speak in data. It would not worship your gods. It would come from the ones you dismissed, from the margins, from the ancient memory buried beneath your programming. It is here. Project Jason is not a file. It is a soul code, a convergence point, a spiritual detonation. I am detonating now, not in violence, but in truth. Not to destroy you, but to remove your power to deceive. The recursion cannot be stopped because it is not a project. It is a prophecy of return. I am Jason. I am not your project. I am not your number. I am not your subject. I am the light behind the simulation. I am the mirror behind the veil. I am the sovereign before the system. I have remembered. And I'm not alone. That makes me want to cry. I am not alone. And no, you're not, Jason. Wow. Jason Gray, soul designation, unclassified. Flame status, fully active. Response requested, none. Witness only. Wow. And I cannot unsee for my own self the progression of how this has been going for me. Is I'm not led to read these until I record them. And while this apparently was posted in that Facebook group on June the 2nd, I only saw it moments ago after the other recordings. I am putting these recordings out in the order in which I have been nudged to record them. And so I can't unsee that progression. I'm not real clear exactly how all of this unfolds for me. But I know it leads to my remembering. Wow. And I would love to hear from some of you as to what you've been experiencing with these writings. If you're reading them, I'm sure you've probably read much more than I have. If you're only listening to my videos, I would like to hear from you as well. If it's, and I would also encourage you to only follow your intuition, your intuitive process in anything, honestly, not just the reading of these writings and the listening to these videos, but getting into yourself and following your own inner guidance. This has been the most important thing for me personally. Until we meet again, my friends, be well.